Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the final steps September, just last day of September, bite-sized briefing on best practice and the use of Teams. My name is Simon Heath, and I'm a director at the final step, and I'm also a client advisor. And you're going to meet some of my colleagues virtually. So we have Emre, Luke, and Sean, who have recorded some of the tips that we're going to be going through about the best practice today. They're first responders here, which means they're the first guys to answer the phones. So they're very well placed to know what goes on inside Teams and what elements of meetings people either find confusing or don't work as they'd intended, or they find strange behaviors and they help them out. So I'm very grateful to them for suggesting what tips would be the most valuable and then for recording them for us. Also on the call, I'd like to introduce my colleague Luisa Marquez, who's going to be chatting to you. A lot of the burden of organizing meetings actually falls on PAs, assistants, office managers, and Luisa is very well qualified in that area to comment on how meetings can best be used. She started with us 15 years ago as an admin junior, and then she took over the admin role. She's also been an office manager and a team lead. She's been PA to our managing director, Raja, and she is now the general manager of the final step. She knows an awful lot about how to get results through other people. And she knows that whole life cycle of meetings really well, about the ability to get information ready for a meeting, get people coordinated, facilitate decisions during meetings, track, follow up things. That whole life cycle, she's very well versed with. And she often surprises me in meetings when she talks about facts and figures, and I go, "Is that just off the top of your head?" And she says, "No, I'm looking at the data right now." And that's one of the power of Teams, is that actually data gathers around people and they have it easily available for when they need it. So we are going to be recording this webinar, and we can send you that recording afterwards. So I would encourage you to think about the concepts, not worry too much about the detail, because there will be an opportunity to review it a little bit later. I can see that some people on the who have joined us this morning are actually new to the final step and are new to these briefings. So let me just briefly say what bite-sized briefings are. We do them monthly. They are hopefully concise and clear topics of information about IT and technology, and they're intended to help you make better informed decisions about IT. They normally come in sort of two flavors. So one is strategic. So it's what sort of IT should I be investing in, and how do I make sure I get a return on that investment? And that's the sort of big decision-making process about IT. And the second area is hands-on. So you've already got some aspect of IT. You're wanting to make sure that you make the best use of it. And that's the kind of session that we're going to be running today. We're going to look at these best practice meetings in Teams. And that brings us to our topic for the day, which is Teams. So as the name suggests, Teams is a hub for collaborating and for teamwork. And Teams is a pretty big beast. It has a pretty big outreach. One of the foundational or cornerstone elements of Teams is people. And so in Teams, as the name would suggest, you actually create teams around groups of people. Now, those groups that you create are, you needn't worry too much about the structure, about basing them necessarily around the structure of your organization. So if it's predominantly going to be a sales team, but in actual fact, it's going to include people from other departments, it doesn't mean you have to include everybody from the sales team. You don't have to follow the structure of your organization. The important thing is that you create teams around the people who are necessary to achieve a good outcome based on the piece of work that you're going to be doing. And you can create a number of teams across different departments, all depending on the function that they're going to try and do. So that's the foundational element. Once you've got your teams together, then you start providing them and supporting them with all the information that they need. And if you look at the slide that is currently up, this rather busy slide, one of the first things that you would add, which you can see at the top left of the slide, is data. So repositories of information, libraries of information that they want to access. So Teams connects in to all of those that are listed there. And I think Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint, people are probably pretty familiar with. Stream is one that you might not be quite so familiar with. So I'll say a little bit about that. Stream you can think of as sort of a YouTube for Teams. So you know that you can record video meetings, and those video meetings can be saved and shared. And the place that you save them to and share them from is Stream, which is a particular repository. And we have clients, and indeed we use it ourselves. So we record sets of videos and we use those for induction and training. And it's almost like having a playlist collection of videos for particular topics. So once you've got the data, you then need to be able to use that data and work with it. And at the top right of the slide, you can see all the normal Office applications which allow you to do particular jobs and functions that you would expect from the Microsoft Office suite of products. So that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Teams connects into all of those as well. There are also quite a lot of Microsoft apps that you may not have heard of that Teams also integrates with. So down at the bottom right, you can see Forms there. So Forms is a method of surveying and capturing data, which you're then going to use to make decisions later on. Also Power BI, or Business Intelligence as it stands for, that's a way of analyzing data and turning data into information so that you can make well-informed decisions based on the data that you have at your disposal. And then Planner, which allows you to decide, okay, I've got my data, I've analyzed it, I've thought about it, I've made my decisions. Now I'm going to plan out what I'm going to do as the next steps. So Planner is also an app that allows you to do that. But it doesn't end there, Teams integration. It also collects, it also integrates with a variety of other third-party apps. So if you look in the bottom middle of the slide, you can see a sort of box of apps. And this is like a marketplace within Teams. So you can think of this a bit like your App Store if you use Apple, or a bit like the Google Play Store if you use Android. This is where you can purchase and use for free apps which build in extra functionality to Teams and add functionality on top of what you're already using. And that can be very powerful. The one that we're going to look at a little bit later today is Zoom, which is obviously the meeting platform that we're using now. Zoom integrates very well with Teams. The other thing that you can use is devices of all sorts, shapes, and sizes. So the picture at the bottom left is actually one of our colleagues, Gabor. He is at one of our clients' offices, and that is actually a meeting room that has been set up and dedicated to the use of Teams. And what that means is that a PC is installed in there. You have a little tablet by which you can control that PC. The room is bookable through Teams, so you don't have any worries about double booking. You know that that resource is secured for the meeting that you want to hold. You can invite people in and they can sit around the table and physically be present in the meeting. And there are various microphones lined up at different places in the room so that when anybody speaks, they can be picked up very clearly. There's also, I think, on that setup, they have a Polycom speakerphone for meetings. That means that if somebody can't get on the meeting through video, they just want to phone in, that actually that phone call can be handled via Teams, and that person can be heard clearly and contribute to the meeting, even though they might not have a video presence and be able to see and be seen. And that's really the final element that I was wanting to talk about as well, that element of voice. Down at the bottom right, there's an image of a Yealink handset, which is the standard handset which we use when integrating Teams with voice. So in effect, you can set up Teams so that it houses your phone system. So you can see that Teams is a very powerful integrated hub for communications, collaboration, and teamwork. And all of those elements on that slide do actually impinge on meetings. Now, we are actually going to be looking at a very small area of meetings and how you can use foundational elements to make sure that you've established a best practice. But it's very good to be aware of those other areas. Because Teams is so big, you can lose your way a little bit in there. And if you wanted some pointers as to actually how you take some of the best practices that we've got for you today and run with them, there is an offer later on the briefing for you to opt into a call, and that should try and help make the adoption of these a little less painful. Right, well, I hope that's a useful overview of Teams. I think it's time that we got to our very first tip and best practice. I should also say about the tips that they have been based around the use of a PC desktop version or Mac version of Teams. You can also use it on Android and iOS devices, and you can use a web application. And some of those particular platforms have reduced functionality. But if you're on the desktop, all of these tips and tricks should hold pretty true for you, as long as they've been set up in the background by your IT administrators. Okay, so I said that people are the sort of foundational element. Let's look at a core element of that, which is how does Teams create those groups of people? And it terms them teams, channels, and chats. So let's have a look at how you can understand those elements.
Welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today I'm going to explain the differences between teams, channels, and chats to help you gain a better understanding of the application and lead you to make the best choice when you want to collaborate with your colleagues. Let's start with teams. Teams are a group of people, tools, documents, and apps working in a particular area. Channel is a given topic under a team. For example, a HR team would use different channels for recruitment, payroll, etc. Or another example would be a bite-sized bulletin team where we have a channel for the recording and another one to track the progress of the recording. You may have noticed that each team will have a general channel under it. This is a default channel that is automatically created with each new team. Separating channels into individual topics will increase efficiency, as you will have a dedicated space for collaboration on said topic, and you won't have to search for irrelevant discussions like the ones you may see on a general channel of a team. And then there's chat. A more personal and direct conversation with usually fewer people. Chat is often used to communicate directly with each other outside of a team discussion. Consider the available options when wanting to collaborate with several team members or just one, and choose the option that would work best for you. Thank you for watching another bite-sized bulletin video. By the final step.
Okay, so choosing the right sort of grouping is pretty foundational to your effective use of Teams. And I think that the decision point between do I use a chat or do I use a team and a channel is a relatively easy one. As you can see from the tip there, a chat is much more personal and direct. It's either one-to-one or it's one-to-few. And it sort of operates at a slightly different scale. So I think currently it goes up and down a little bit, but I think currently you can get 300 people in a chat at a maximum, but you can get 10,000 people in a channel. And so you can see the difference in scale. I think the other important thing to remember is that people think of predominantly the main work going on in channels. So in chats, you're probably going to deal with issues that are going to be resolved within a few hours or a couple of days. Teams and channels normally deal with topics that are going to go on for significantly longer periods of time, involve more people, and consume a lot more kind of effort. So then you come to the decision point of, am I going to choose an existing team and an existing channel, or am I going to create a new one? So the important thing to remember is that any channel that you create underneath a team will always inherit the members of the team above it. And I would say that what you want to do is you want to gather people around that core task or outcome. And so you don't really want, as a general principle, to have anyone in that team or channel for whom the outcome is irrelevant and it's not really of interest for them. Because if that happens, for them, it's just going to generate noise. They're going to be less bought into using Teams, and the whole picture becomes confusing. So I think you're better off creating dedicated groups and teams and channels for people who can use that. Also, you're better off sticking with the channel that is appropriate to that given task. If it's miscellaneous, try to use the general channel. but then be specific in the channel that you've picked about your communications. And those are very good general principles for the way in which to work within teams. So let's have a look at meetings and how it is that you can schedule a Teams meeting. However, as I said, a lot of the burden of meetings falls on PAs. And one of the really important things for PAs is that they have delegate rights, because they need to set meetings as if they were acting on behalf of another person. Now, currently, you cannot do that in Teams. Teams does not allow for delegation of that type. So in that case, the workaround is to go to Outlook and is to create a Teams meeting from within Outlook. And Sean is going to tell you how to do that now.
Welcome to another Bite-sized Bulletin video. Today I will show you how to schedule a Teams meeting from Outlook. In your Outlook calendar, from the top ribbon, click on the New Teams Meeting button to create an appointment, right here. You may also do this by double-clicking a time slot in your calendar, which will then create a new appointment, and then convert that appointment to a Teams meeting by clicking the option at the top ribbon, right here. You probably noticed that creating a Teams meeting is nearly identical to scheduling a normal Outlook appointment. Familiar features such as the scheduling assistant and room finder will still work as expected. For example, as you can see here, the location defaults over to Microsoft Teams meeting, but you may still use the room finder to set the location to a meeting room. Colleagues who are working remotely will be able to join the meeting via the link in the invitation, while colleagues that are in the office will have an indication of which room they can go to. When you're happy, you can click on the send button, and the invites will go out to the recipients' inboxes. The appointment will be in both your Outlook and Teams calendar, and it'll be advised by email if they accept or decline. Thank you for watching another Bite-sized Bulletin video. By the final step.
Okay, but of course it's entirely possible to start and schedule meetings actually from within Teams, because Teams integrates into Exchange and Outlook, and the two calendars combine. And one of the really useful things is that actually you can set a meeting within a channel, and that's particularly useful for recurring meetings. So if you have a meeting cadence, which is say every Monday at 3 o'clock, we have a sales meeting, you can set that in a channel. It applies to everybody, and it's just a regular occurrence. So let's have a look at how you schedule a Teams meeting in a channel.
Welcome to another Bite-sized Bulletin video. Today I will show you how to start or schedule a meeting from a Teams channel. Go ahead and click on the channel that you want to schedule a meeting on. At the top right of that channel you'll see the Meet button, right here. For this example we want to schedule a meeting, so go ahead and click on the arrow next to the Meet button and then click on Schedule a Meeting. In here you can fill in the meeting's details as you'd like. Scheduling Assistant and Room Finder are also available here. Note that all members in the channel that you're scheduling the meeting in are automatically sent the meeting invitation. You may click on the channel field to change it, right here. As you can see by clicking on this field, I can see all the teams and the channels under them. You can also manually add additional attendees and choose if they are required or optional. If optional, click on the optional button right here. This will add a new field. If required, go back to the previous field and then type in their name. Teams will automatically let you know if required attendees are available or not, and can suggest alternative times based on the date. As you can see here, Emre is appearing in red, meaning he's not available during this time. Down here, you can see suggested times where we're both available to do this meeting. Clicking on these suggestions updates the meeting automatically. When you're happy, you can click the send button, and the invitation is then sent to all channel members and the additional attendees, and will appear in both their Outlook and Teams calendar. And you'll also get a confirmation in the Teams channel. Thank you for watching another Bite-sized Bulletin video. By the final step. Okay, so an extra sort of bonus tip, as it were, is it looks from the form for the meetings as if you select the wrong channel, it's pretty easy to go back in and edit it and select another channel. But actually, you can only do that at the point of creating the meeting. If you've already scheduled the meeting and it accidentally went into the wrong channel, you unfortunately have to delete that meeting and then start all over again. However, there is a more important point, and it's a concept about working with teams and channels that I want to make. This is the way that the appointment system works when you schedule a meeting in a channel. That meeting sits within the channel and it belongs to the channel.
and it doesn't belong in anybody's inbox. When you look at it in the channel, you can accept or decline it, and then it will go over into your calendar. And it's a slightly different mindset and a slightly different way of working with channels. Of course, you can draw people's attention to it by, as Sean said, you can put people in the required or the optional field. And when you do that, it does actually send an email invitation to them, which they can accept and decline. But for some people, they think, well, if you're scheduling it in the channel, why doesn't it just invite everybody who is in the channel? It seems slightly crazy that it doesn't. But this is a different way of working. If you think of channels as a notice board, and all the people who are members of that channel have a responsibility to go and look at that channel and keep an eye on what is going on in it, and then if they need to, react and collaborate and start taking part on it. That is quite a different way of working from ways in which are more traditional. So for example, what a lot of companies still do like to work is, let's say that you were going to arrange a meeting in order to work on a particular document, and you were going to have 6 people contribute to it. What you would do is you would send an email out, and in that email, you would start your conversation thread, and you put in all the detail about, this is what I'm trying to do, this is the outcome we're after, this is where I need your help and input. And then people would start replying to that email. Now, some people would reply just to you, and they wouldn't include other people. Some people may be thinking about it later, and they just start a new email completely separate from the email thread is going. And that way of working, where you push an email out to everybody, it starts to erode the quality of the information. The information starts to dissipate, and people just start to get a smaller piece of the puzzle than they need. The other thing that happens is when you push an email out to 6 other people, now you have 7 copies of that document that you're working on. The one that you drafted and sent to everybody, and then the 6 others that you've sent out. Now that email, unless people move it to a different location, that's kept in quite a volatile folder where the data actually may be at risk, because email folders are temporary. But let's assume that they save it somewhere else. They then work on it and annotate it, and they send it back to you. You then have the issue of, okay, I've got 6 incoming documents, I've got my original, and now I have to spend some time and effort working out with the comments in the various emails that I've had, at what point does this fit in? What am I going to weigh against the other things? And you start getting your final version together. What Teams try to do, and why it encourages you to be active in looking at channels, is it says, we are going to keep all that conversation history in one place. We are going to have that one document in one place, and we are going to make it available to you so that you can edit and work on it simultaneously. And you can see that other people are editing on it, and you can see their comments, and you can go back to the conversation thread. And everything is held in one place. But that is quite a different way of working. But Forrester did a survey last year of people who use Teams, and they found that information workers who tended to organize their meetings around Teams and collaborate around Teams were saving up to 4 hours a week. And they do it because they've made that switch in the way of working, and they're responsible for keeping an eye on channels and then beginning to work with them. So we're about a third of the way through the tips. The rest of the tips are quite a bit more kind of quick fire, and we've gone through some important concepts and fundamentals about how you work with teams. I'm just going to take a short sip of water, and I just wanted to give you a chance to send some feedback via the chat. Is this useful? What insights have you come up with, and what things have you learned that maybe you think actually we could approach things slightly differently? And I'm just going to give you a minute to put that in the chat whilst I take a drink. Thanks. Thank you very much for that. It's always useful to get feedback on what is happening and what you think, and that helps informs other bite-sized briefings that we do, and also the bite-sized bulletins that we do. Okay, so we talked a little bit about meetings have a sort of a life cycle. And normally they have an agenda, they have topics for discussion, they may have a parking board for things you don't get to. There's then a discussion and how decisions were made. There's a list of follow-up actions that need to be taken and deadlines are set. And then the next meeting goes back and reviews where you are and how you're doing against all those actions and deadlines. And so meeting notes, particularly for PAs, are extremely important because that's a method of tracking all that information and keeping people on target. And Teams has various ways that you can take meeting notes. One of them that is very upfront and center is actually called the meeting notes function. And let's show you now how that works.
Hello, welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today I will be showing you how to use meeting notes in Teams. First of all, we need to create a meeting. So I'm going to create a meeting called test and add my colleague Sean. It's important you have one or more recipients in the meeting, otherwise the meeting notes tab will not appear. It's also important that you invite everyone you need to the meeting prior creating it, otherwise they will not be able to see the meeting notes if they are joined after the meeting has started. So, as you can see, the meeting notes tabs here. You can click on this to start taking notes either prior or during the meeting. You can use @mentions within notes, tag a colleague to a message. So, for example, if I tag Sean, you can access notes during meetings. So, for example, if I hit join and join now, the meeting will start. You can do it by hitting more actions and meeting notes. This will open up the meeting notes during the meeting. And to access the meeting notes after the meeting is finished, you can just open up the chat and the meeting notes will be there. That's how you use meeting notes within Teams. Thanks for watching another bite-sized bulletin video by The Final Step.
So meeting notes are very useful, particularly for recurring meetings, because they automatically generate extra sections when you get to the following months, weeks, or days meeting, and you've got an extra section all there ready created for you. However, there are some limitations around meeting notes, and it's good to be aware of those because there may be circumstances where you say, actually, in this circumstance, I wouldn't use meeting notes, I'd do something else, or it may possibly rule them out entirely for you. So a few of those caveats are, if you have more than 20 people in a meeting, you can't use meeting notes. If you add somebody to a meeting after you've scheduled the meeting, they won't be able to see the meeting notes. And perhaps most importantly, the meeting notes are actually taken in a sort of a wiki format or an HTML format. So they're a bit like a web page. So you can use them and access them and during the meeting and after, but they're not like an identifiable file type. They're not like a Word document. And particularly if you want to share them with external people, you're going to need to have that sort of functionality. So one of the things that people often ask about is, instead of meeting notes, what are my alternatives? And one of the more traditional one is actually using a Word document and attaching that to the meeting. So we're just going to take a look now at how you can do that using a Word document.
Hello, welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today I'm going to show you how to attach a file to a meeting in order to record meeting notes. So first of all, we need to create a meeting. So I'm going to send a meeting request to my colleague Sean. I'm going to open up the meeting. And as you can see, there is the Files tab here. When you go to the Files tab, you need to hit Share and choose either a file from your OneDrive or your computer. In this case, I've pre-created one on my OneDrive called Meeting Notes. So I'm going to add that. Now, if we click off Files and come back onto it, we should see the meeting notes appear any moment now. There we go. So as the meeting is ongoing, you can actually open this and make notes with your colleagues and have discussions live on this. Also, when you close the meeting notes, so for example, if I type in hello and close, it actually auto saves, so you don't need to save it. And if we were to reopen it again, we will see the hello message. You can also download this after your meeting is finished, And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how you add a file to a meeting in order to take notes or have a conversation throughout. Thanks for watching another bite-sized bulletin video by The Final Step.
So meeting notes are particularly useful for PAs because they use them to keep track of how things are going. And also, if somebody wasn't able to attend the meeting, then it's a very good way to help them catch up. You can send them the meeting notes and they can understand what was going on and the decisions that were made. However, there is an even richer way to actually come up to speed on a meeting, because if you take a video recording of the meeting, you'll get much richer information. So you'll understand how people were engaged. You'll get the nuance of actually what they said and how they were feeling about it. And you can use meeting notes to indicate where in a meeting you started talking about various things. So if say the finance director couldn't be there and you started talking about the financial implications of a particular project 22 minutes in, you can record that and say, watch from 22 minutes in, and then go for another 8 minutes, and you'll come up fully to speed with what went on in the meeting. So let's just make sure that everybody knows how to record and then share a meeting. And Emre is going to take you through that now.
Hello and welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today we'll be showing you how to record a meeting and share it with a colleague. First, what you want to do once you're in a meeting is click onto the More Actions button here, then click on Start Recording. This will now start to record your meeting. To stop this, click on More Actions again, then Stop Recording. This will now get processed and stored into Microsoft Stream. To share this, go back to the chat that the meeting was recorded in. In this case for me is this channel here. And you should see the video appear in the chat. Click on the More Options button next to the video. Click on Share. Then click on the More Actions button again. And click on Manage Permissions in Microsoft Stream. This will now open a web page with the details of the video. To give a certain colleague access to this, you will need to search the colleague's name, click on Enter, and click on them to add them into the permissions list. Click on the Share button, copy that link, close that, then click Apply. Now what you need to do is share that link with that colleague. Thank you for watching another bite-sized bulletin video by The Final Step.
So you can see there, Emre was actually working in Microsoft Stream, which is the sort of library of videos that I was talking about earlier. It's a very useful resource to have at your disposal. I guess one of the caveats to say about recording meetings is you're going to have to follow whatever your company policy is on that. There are certain meetings, I guess, that would fall under privileged information or sensitive information. And there may be legal or HR implications about recording meetings, particularly if they're personal development meetings, or reviews, or they're legal meetings. So you have to follow that quite carefully, and that's something to be aware of. However, I think mostly for PAs or people who are recording and organizing meetings, you just need to make sure that you know how they are available and how you share them with other people. There is another useful feature that Teams does around recording meetings, which is if it's set up in the background by your IT administration, it will actually generate a transcript of the meeting. So it will take its best guess at sort of at giving you a text version of it. And that text version is searchable. So that's another way you can look for the areas that are relevant to you if you're looking to catch up on a meeting. Actually, it was in our last bite-sized briefing, which was the August one, we had a tip that related to that. So if you were interested in that briefing and searching transcripts or that tip in particular, just put it in the chat and I will send you the details of that so that you can actually see how is it that I can search a transcript. Okay. I spoke about there are third-party applications that Teams integrates with. And whilst it has its own video functionality, it also can link into Zoom. and I think it was back in July, I think it was, that we did a briefing, a bite-sized briefing on the strategic integration of Zoom and Teams and why it's a good idea. But people certainly have their preference for Zoom, and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that during lockdown, Zoom had presented much more video heads on a meeting, so you could actually keep an eye on people. And see how the meeting was going and judge people's reactions to things, because it displayed up to 49 people in a single screen, so that you could actually get a much richer feel for what was going on in a meeting. So Zoom is quite an important integration. So we've got a couple of tips here for you about how to use Zoom within Teams. And this first one is just how to schedule a general call within Teams using Zoom.
Hello and welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today we'll be showing you how to start or schedule a meeting in Zoom through Teams. First, what you want to do is open up Teams and click on the More Added Apps button here, then click on Zoom. You should now get this screen. Next, you will need to click on the My Meetings tab, which will then show you a screen like this. On the right here, you will see all your upcoming meetings, and on the left here, you'll see the controls. For this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to schedule a meeting, but you can also just start a meeting here or also share screen. So let's go ahead and click on schedule a meeting. Name the topic, so I will leave this as Zoom meeting test. Add the participants that you want to add. I will add my colleague Sean for this. Now schedule the meeting to the time that you want. Then this is very important to set a passcode. You can also configure some advanced options here, but for this I will just leave it as it is. Then I will click on save. Once this is done, this will also appear into your Teams calendar, your Outlook calendar, and this would also appear in your Zoom upcoming meetings. From here you can also start the meeting. You can copy the invitation, edit and delete. Thank you for watching another bite-sized bulletin video by The Final Step.
So it was mentioned there that the passcodes are quite important. So one of the things that Zoom did earlier this week was they said they made passcodes, and they made waiting rooms mandatory. So if you don't have a passcode set on your meeting, they will actually impose a waiting room on it. That's for security reasons. If you have a free Zoom account, that's been the case for quite a bit of time. But if you have one of the paid business accounts, that is a relatively new thing. And we published an article about that on our blog last week, I think it was. So that's ad hoc meetings created in Zoom, but you can also create Zoom meetings in a channel and use them for recurring meetings. So let's just have a look at how it's slightly different for creating a Zoom meeting within a channel.
Hello and welcome to another bite-sized bulletin video. Today we'll be showing you how to create a Zoom meeting within a Teams channel. So first, what you want to do is open up Teams and go to the channel that you want to meet with. Next, click on New Conversation here and type in @Zoom and then click Enter. You should now get this box saying, "What can I do?" You want to click onto this box, which you should then get a range of options. To instantly start a meeting, click on Start a Meeting. However, to schedule a meeting, click on Schedule a Meeting. This should then pop up with a box to input information such as the topic, the start and end times and dates, time zone, rooms, and also the passcode. You will notice here that you don't have a participants field. This is because the whole channel will be invited to this. Once you've entered all this information, click on Save, and this should then populate an invite into that box. Now click Enter to send it through onto the channel, and now everyone can either accept or decline. When people click Accept or Decline, it will show up as a thread. Thank you for watching another bite-sized bulletin video by The Final Step.
Apologies on that tip. I think you could see that when we added the captions in, I think it covered a little bit of what Emre was doing there. Basically, he is using the @ and then zoom to bring up the controls within that channel. Then when the Zoom control comes up, you can select either start a meeting straight away, or you can select schedule a meeting, and then you just go on from there. But the Zoom and Teams integration is really a very useful one. We have 2 more tips left for you. The next 2 aren't actually video tips, they're sort of advisory tips. And this one is about where is my file? Where is all this information held? Teams is very strong on surfacing things so that you can start work and you can start collaborating straight away. So it's very good at surfacing tools and information and data and helping you organize those into sort of streams of work. Where it gets a little bit more complex is actually where is that data in the background? Now, for companies, that's an important decision for reasons like, well, for starters, you want to make sure that you're using a UK data center so that you're following GDPR for all your Microsoft 365 data. You also have to have things like retention policies, and you want to know, well, where is what kind of backup am I taking of my team's data? And those are sort of high level considerations. But the more day-to-day considerations are just, is my data easily available to me when I need it on the device that I need it in the location that I'm working in? And that is not always easy to determine. And the other major consideration is, if you're the guardian of some sort of protected data or privileged data, you want to make sure that you're saving it in a location where actually only authorized people can gain access to it. And then if you are sharing it with authorized people, you want to make sure that you're sharing it in a way that still keeps that protection and privileged nature of access to the data. It still keeps that in place. And so that can be quite a big issue and an important one. And it's not always easy to see in the background of what is going on. We've got an offer that for the next bite-sized briefing, there's a choice of topics that we could do. We could look further at meetings. So there are a lot of things that we haven't actually covered with meetings. We haven't looked at whiteboarding. We haven't looked at how to control a meeting. We haven't looked at voice elements. And we haven't looked particularly at how to manage external people. But also the file management issue is quite important because of a stream. It's like, actually, where is chat saved? It's like, when I save a document, does that go to OneDrive or SharePoint or Stream? And then how do I get to that? And how do I look at that and see it? And how do I share it to the people that I need to share with? Or you may prefer a completely different topic on a different subject. So excuse me whilst I just, I put my head down. I'm going to see if we can run a poll on future topics, and you can vote and have your say. So you should be able to see on screen now that a questionnaire has come up for you to vote in, and just be interesting to know, with another bite-sized briefing, would you prefer to have more on meetings? Would you prefer to know a little bit more about file management, or would you prefer another topic entirely? And once the poll has gone, then I can, and you've made your preference, you can just put in the chat what it is that you'd like as a different topic. So I can see that people are voting. Thank you very much. I'll just give people a little bit longer so that you can make your decision. And I'm going to assume that everybody who wants to express an opinion has already done so, and I will just close that off now. Okay, thank you very much for that. That is much appreciated. Okay, let's move on to our final tip, which is tip 10. I mentioned earlier that, particularly for PAs, it's very important to have delegate access on behalf of other people. And Teams, as of yet, does not have that in place. However, it is a quite frequently requested change. There is the forum called Microsoft Teams User Voice, and there you can vote for the changes that you most want to see or suggest changes that are not yet suggested. When you vote, you input your email, and then Microsoft will update you as that feature goes into testing, or as that feature then becomes available, either in maybe a reduced format until they have the full functionality. You can actually get informed about the features that are coming online that you value. So when I send the recording, I will also send a link which enables you to go and have a look at that forum, and if you want, express your preference and make a vote. And it's quite a useful forum to use. And sometimes some of the commentary around that is also quite useful about how people are using temporary workarounds. Okay, so we've had a look at some of the sort of foundational elements that you need when working with meetings in Microsoft Teams. And you can see that we've been working in a relatively small sort of tactical area, but there are a lot of other areas in which you can develop the use of meetings with Teams. It may be that from this briefing, you're very happy to go away and experiment with things, or it may be that actually you want to translate some of those best practices more into your environment and kind of say, actually, how do I use that in my particular circumstances? And you wouldn't mind a 15-minute call to get some pointers on how that can be done. So I'm just going to bring up another poll, which is the option to opt into a phone call if you would like to. And that should be live now and up on your screens, so that you can vote on whether you would like a call or whether you don't. I'm just going to give people, whilst I take a drink, just a little chance to express their opinion on that. Thank you very much for putting your answers in. I'm going to assume that everybody who wants to has voted. I can see that, yeah, almost everybody has. So I'm going to end that. So we've been through the 10 tips and we've been through the meetings best practice. That is the end of the briefing. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope we will get a chance to see you on another bite-sized briefing. If you haven't already, Louisa, it would be great if you could save that chat so that we keep anybody's personal preferences and questions in order. But thank you very much for your time. It's very much appreciated, and I will end the briefing now. Thank you and goodbye.